I've been thinking about masks recently, because... I can't remember the reason actually, never mind. So, let's visit a bunch of towns in a pine forest, where masks are magical. In real life, there was a fabric mask called a moretta, popular with 18th century Venetian women. Instead of being tied around the head, there was a button sewn into the back that the women would hold with their teeth, so that it was easy to remove. It also meant they couldn't talk, so it gave them a cool, mysterious air. Inspired by that, in this culture I'm making, masks are carved from wood and have tabs in the back for the wearer to bite. But the wearer can still talk, just with the mask's voice instead of their own. Because magic. And they're worn to channel spirits, so they take on certain qualities of the spirit represented. For example, there's a sun spirit who isn't harmed by fire, so in certain festivals, people wearing this mask will be set alight and not get burnt. When people wear these masks, the way they think is shaped by the way their society thinks that spirit thinks. Let's call this combination of mask and wearer a persona, which is originally from the Latin for mask anyway, because otherwise I'm going to be saying the word mask a lot. Mask wearing starts in festivals and rituals, but over time it spreads into everyday life. In some towns, masks are still restricted to specific activities. In some, people just always wear masks. All the masks are the same form. They just differ in decoration, with easily accessible pigments, so people can change whenever they want. But there are patterns in how they're designed. Let's classify them in 3 ways: spirit masks, unique masks, and plain masks. Spirit masks are the original ones that are used in rituals that can grant magic powers. Originally, they're restricted to special occasions, but this changes when metalwork comes here. Metalwork is dangerous and smelly and kind of scary. People who do metalwork are useful, but feared, so they start wearing masks, particularly the mask of that sun spirit. Practically, this is useful as it protects them from the heat and the smoke, but it also anonymizes the metalworker. Now the person can't really be shunned for working with metal, because it isn't really them doing it, it's the spirit persona. And if channeling spirits helps with one activity, why not others? Potters start to wear the sun spirit mask too, and never get burnt. Hunters wear the masks of the swift, quiet owl spirit, and become invisible. Fishers channel the persona of the lake spirit, and can breathe underwater. The set of these masks is quite small, based on traditional spirits. But sometimes people will design their own unique mask around a specific persona they want to portray, either coming up with something completely unique, or combining symbolic traits from other masks or artwork. These personas are often used to establish friendships, and occasionally rivalries, because they're representative of a certain type of personality and set of priorities. And if other people like that persona, they might adopt that mask design too. And if that persona becomes established enough, it might become a spirit mask itself. Sometimes both types of persona can gain new unintended connotations. If someone uses a mask for deception, its persona can become known as deceptive, and another persona might come to fill the first's original role. And sometimes mask designs fall out of use entirely. Plain masks are a bit different, because they don't really establish a persona, they establish a lack of persona. When a person wears a plain mask, they become anonymous, so they can do things without facing social consequences. This is pretty good for democratic decision making. People don't fear peer pressure, so they can voice opinions they fear might be unpopular. If nobody likes it, no big deal, it's not like they can face social consequences for it. And since they don't have to uphold a consistent identity, they can change their mind without having to justify it. And when power is concentrated in a single person, there's not really much danger in criticising them. So direct democracies are common in this area. Because the pigments are so easy to access, one person can change personas as often or as little as they want. They can't be 2 at once, obviously, but apart from that, they can change freely. But for anonymity to be effective, some degree of uniformity is needed. If you keep wearing a distinctive cloak, for example, you can still be identified by that, so a lot of clothing looks the same. Sometimes, though, people will create more elaborate clothing, just for the joy of creating it. These are then passed around without owners, left hanging on trees for whoever wants them. They just circulate around the community. What stops people from doing harmful things and never facing consequences? Well, not much. Punishment is difficult unless it's immediate. There's not really a way to track harmful people without also removing a little anonymity from everyone else. Different communities have different ways to deal with this, so I'm just going to talk about a couple. In one town, there's a small group of people trusted as enforcers. People, not personas. They're permitted to unmask whoever they want, to track who's being which persona. And they're trusted with administering punishment. They kind of have to be trusted, because they're the only people who can possibly perceive long-term patterns of people's behaviour. But whenever they need to actually use this authority, they have to unmask themselves too. Here, people are expected to have consistent identities behind the mask, because otherwise what's the point in tracking them? The enforcers can essentially bring a person to trial, unmask them, and reveal a pattern of behaviour between their personas. And the rest of the population gets to vote on how bad it was. If it's bad enough, the person might have their front teeth removed so that they can never wear a mask again. This society kind of has two layers of social networks. There are the relationships between people and the relationships between personas, and while most people can conduct both kinds, some are cut off entirely from the persona network. But in another town, they just don't really believe that people have consistent identities. All social relationships are conducted between personas, not people, and people are just vessels through which personas act. Preventing bad behaviour here is mostly about encouraging good behaviour. Disagreements have to be dealt with immediately, and it's the persona that gets involved in disagreements, not the person. A lot of this is inspired by internet communities where identity is a lot more fluid. A single person behind the screen can wear hundreds of masks depending on who they want to be that day, or they can choose to be completely anonymous. But the face behind the screen is still generally understood to be the real identity. I wonder if that's going to change a bit in the future with how prevalent the internet is now, and the ease of presenting different identities. And I was also inspired a little by the possibility that more people now know me as Nakari than as my legal name. More than 2,000 people have subscribed to this channel now, which is amazing, and thank you all so much. I really never expected all that, and it makes me really happy that people enjoy my ramblings. I'm really grateful for everyone who's supported me, and I hope I can keep making stuff you guys will enjoy.